How's it going, guys? This is Truth Paradox. Today is the 2nd of August 2020. Now, in this video, I will be showing you a document that was published 10 years ago, 2010. And this is entitled Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. None other by the Rockefeller Foundation, along with Global Business Network. So, for those of you who don't know, the Rockefeller Foundation and the Rockefeller Family. Rockefeller Family is one of the 1% of the 1% of the 1% richest people in the world. But you might be wondering, why haven't I seen their name in the Forbes top 100 richest people in the world? That's a good question, because you see Bill Gates, you see Warren Buffett, and all the other billionaires of the world. But why don't you see Rockefellers? And that's a good question, because the Rockefeller family, they don't own anything. They control everything, and they're using their foundation and trusts and their other philanthropy organizations to hide their wealth. See, guys, if you have a foundation, you get less taxation. And that's why, like, if you see, like, most rich, like I say, like, most rich people, they have foundations, because that grants them less taxes, and that means more money going to their pockets. I'm not saying that other people who have foundations, they don't help people. I do believe some foundations out there help people. But what I'm saying is, for the Rockefellers, they only have a foundation because it saves them through less taxes. That's it. Rockefeller families, they don't they don't give a damn. It's all about money. It's all about money. So without further ado, let's get started. So again, this is entitled Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. So why do I bring this document up? See, guys, we've had an interesting year so far, right? The plandemic, the virus, the lockdowns, the economic sabotage of the globe. So I will read excerpts in this document, and I will let you guys be the judge if you think this is a mere coincidence or was it planned all along. And for me, I'd be biased to say this was all planned all along. And let me tell you this, there's no such thing as a coincidence for these elite. And to say the Rockefeller family, they are one of the many rich people who control the world through social engineering and mass media manipulation. And as I've said, I will let you be the judge. I will read excerpts. I will let you be the judge if you think this is all a coincidence. Okay, so let's skip to page 16. I'll do my best to make this short and sweet. So let's start. Lockstep, a world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. Sounds familiar? A little bit. Let's go further. Page 17. Okay, so let's start with this. The scenario narratives. The scenarios that follow are not meant to be exhaustive. Rather, they're designed to be both plausible and provocative, to engage your imagination while also raising new questions for you about what that future might look like and feel like. Each scenario tells a story of how the world, and in particular, the developing world, might progress over the next 15 to 20 years. Please keep in mind that the scenarios in this report are stories, not forecasts, and the plausibility of a scenario does not hinge on the occurrence of any particular detail. So what they're saying here in this introduction is whatever you read could be possible, but they're not saying it's going to happen. They're saying here these are just stories, not forecasts. So you see the way they play with words with you, they're saying that it could be possible, but it could not happen as well. But at the same time, if it happens, it could just be a mere coincidence. So as I've said, I will let you be the judge. So further along, let's go. Page 18, the juicy part of the document. So going back, scenario narratives, lockstep. A world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership, with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. In 2012, the pandemic that the world had been anticipating for years finally hit. Unlike 2009's H1N1, this new influenza strain, originating from wild geese, was extremely virulent and deadly. Even the most pandemic-prepared nations were quickly overwhelmed when the virus streaked around the world, affecting nearly 20% of the globe's population and killing 8 million in just 7 months. And the majority of them healthy young adults. The pandemic also had a deadly effect on economies. International mobility of both people and goods screeched to a halt, debilitating industries like tourism and breaking global supply chains. Sound familiar? Let's move on. Even locally, normally bustling shops and office buildings sat empty for months, devoid of both employees and customers. Did that look familiar? I think so. The pandemic blanketed the planet, though disproportionate numbers died in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Central America, where the virus spread like wildfire in the absence of official containment protocols. But even in developed countries, containment was a challenge. The United States' initial policy of strongly discouraging citizens from flying proved deadly in its leniency, accelerating the spread of the virus not just within the US, but across borders. However, a few countries did fare better. China in particular. The Chinese government's quick imposition and enforcement of mandatory quarantine for all citizens, as well as its instant and near hermetic sealing off of all borders, saved millions of lives, stopping the spread of the virus far earlier than in other countries and enabling a swifter post-pandemic recovery. Does that sound familiar? You think it's a coincidence? I don't think so. And this is the last portion I'm going to read. China's government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authority and imposed airtight rules and restrictions. Hear this: from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like train stations and supermarkets. Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified. See that? In order to protect themselves from the spread of increasingly global problems, from pandemics and transnational terrorism to environmental crises and rising poverty, leaders around the world took a firmer grip on power. You call that tyranny. At first, the notion of a more controlled world gained wide acceptance and approval. Hear this: citizens willingly gave up some of their sovereignty and their privacy to more paternalistic states in exchange for greater safety and stability. Aren't we seeing this right now? People are just giving up their freedom for security. And that's what government wants. That's what the elite wants. So moving along. citizens were more tolerant and even eager for top-down direction and oversight, and national leaders had more latitude to impose order in ways they saw fit. Total control. In developed countries, this heightened oversight took many forms. Biometric IDs for all citizens, for example, and tighter regulation of key industries whose stability was deemed vital to national interests. In many developed countries, enforced cooperation with a suite of new regulations and agreements slowly but steadily restored both order and, importantly, economic growth. So, did that excerpt sound familiar? Does it even feel familiar? Does it even look familiar? I say yes. See, guys, they've been planning this for years. And as I've said, this document was published 2010, 10 years ago. I'm pretty sure they've been planning this more than 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Guys, these elite social engineers, they want to strip off of people's freedom and sovereignty. And see, like for the most part, people are just willing to give up their freedoms for security. And they trust their governments too much. And I'm not saying you fight against your government. What I'm saying is, it's not wrong to ask and be inquisitive. You have to ask, does this make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, there has to be a problem. So, guys, have an open mind. Governments, you can never trust them fully. I'd say I don't trust half of my life on Big Daddy government. And as I've said, I'm not saying we have to have anarchy, but what I'm saying is you have to have an open mind. Do not be a sheep. You have to ask, be inquisitive. Does this make sense? Is this logical? Are these things stripping off my freedom and sovereignty? And if you think they do, as I've said, there is a problem. So anyways, guys, that was just like, a quick video about this document. As I've said, for me, there's no such thing as a coincidence for these elite social engineers. As I've said, make your own conclusion. If you think it's just a big coincidence, hey, good for you. You do you. But for me, this has been planned all along. They were just grooming people for 10 years for this to happen. So anyways, guys, this was the video for today, and I hope you guys liked the video and found it informative. And I will see you in the next video. This is Truth Paradox, signing out.